is Katie De Leon. I'm the head of Human Resources and Consumer Affairs. What I noticed during our payroll is that my compensation and benefits specialist would always wait for all the branches to submit their timekeeping. It takes a lot of effort for him to consolidate everything, and especially it's like a waiting game for us. All the forms are filed manually. I really wanted to streamline the process and at the same time make it more efficient. When I saw Sprout, it's actually more affordable for us, and it really suited the local setting.
Our payroll process more on manual talaga. So we use biometrics sa ating mga branches. Ngayon, so medyo hassle kasi every payroll cut-off, you have to download all the attendance of the employees there in the branches. Ayan, I have to request pa sa payroll namin. Once na kulang yung attendance ng employee, we can easily find the form na po talaga like certificate of attendance to certify na pumasok sila nung araw na yun. Unlike before na more on ano talaga, manual.
This last payroll namin, so nag-start ako ng Sunday, and then Monday, tapos na ako.
Sprout really helped us with the technology during pandemic. It's actually the perfect timing for us to migrate because when it was during the lockdowns, of course, people wouldn't want to do biometrics, right? It helped also in the process of adapting to the situation because everyone was going digital at that time. It was a huge leap or a huge step for us to make, but I think it's worth it.
Hello, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome to our webinar on empowering your compensation strategy, navigating wage distortion, and salary benchmarking. I'm Shay, and I'll be your host this morning. Are you familiar with distortion? Wage distortion happens when a minimum wage increase decreases the gap between different employee groups. Find out if this happens within your organization in today's webinar as our speakers share with us the signs and its impacts. Please remember to follow at Sprout HR Tech on social media if you enjoy webinars like this one, and keep an eye out for brand new episodes. Now, before we proceed with today's webinar, I'd just like to give you a quick introduction of Sprout. Sprout Solutions is the largest homegrown B2B software as a service company in the Philippines and the most trusted end-to-end HR platform aimed to create game-changing solutions for the Philippines. Our goal is to help Philippine businesses grow through our ecosystem of solutions that enable organizations for the future of work. Curious to know even more? Please turn your attention to this video.
Are you spending too much time on payroll? Are you unable to spot the root causes of attrition? With the right system, you can hire the right talent. Pay your employees on time, track their performance, and focus on career development. So let go of manual work and embrace digital transformation. Build a stress-free environment and empower your employees to perform at their best. Choose Sprout to improve and automate every stage of the employee lifecycle so you can focus on what matters. Our customer success team will provide a seamless onboarding experience. Sprout's tailor-fit solutions address common HR pain points of Philippine businesses. Let us support you in your journey to digital maturity. With positive reviews and global recognitions, Sprout continues to impact the life of every Filipino by improving businesses in the country. Join over 1,000 organizations that have transformed their businesses and empowered their people. Let Sprout innovate and transform your core business infrastructure, ensure your employees' financial health, and reimagine the concept of total wellness, because that's what great employers do. And great employers use Sprout. Start your journey with Sprout today. Are you spending too much time on payroll?
I would just want to let you know that we will be having a fireside chat session later where you can ask our speakers anything about the topic. To send in your questions, kindly click the Q&A button. So start listing down your questions and we will be addressing as many of them as we can later on. Now to introduce our first speaker. She graduated from the University of the East Manila with a degree and Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, major in Banking and Finance. She earned her master's in Business Administration in Lyceum Northwestern University and her Juris Doctor degree at San Sebastian College, Recoletos, Manila. She also worked as an attorney of the Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Board, Ilocos. Currently, she is a Chief Labor and Employment Officer of the National Wages and Productivity Commission, an attached agency of the Department of Labor and Employment. Let us all welcome Attorney Faye Marie Martinez Sabate of National Wages Productivity Commission.
Hi, good morning to everyone. Good morning. Thank you, Shailene. Tama ba, Shailene? Or
Yes,
Shailene?
attorney. Thank you po.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So, sabi nga ni Ms. Shailene, I am Attorney Faye Marie Sabate, the Chief Labor and Employment Officer of the Review, Appeals, and Legal Division of the National Wages and Productivity Commission. So, we are an attached agency of the Department of Labor and Employment po. So, let me start my presentation by sharing muna. Share ko muna yung aking presentation. So, kamusta po yung mga participants natin today? Madami pala kayo. Can I have a heart reaction or thumbs up, please? Kung buhay pa ba tayong lahat? Ayan, kailangan ko ng proof of life. Ayan, thank you so much. So, ayan, merong iba happy. Okay, sige. Thank you po. So I'll start my presentation with the new wage orders issued by the Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Boards. So all over the Philippines, we have 16 regional boards. Ito po yung mga regions na, ang tawag po kasi sa amin NWPC or the National Wages and Productivity Commission, pero yung aming mga regional boards po ay tinatawag na Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Board po. So, the wage order is issued by the board pursuant to its minimum wage determination function for workers in private establishments and for domestic workers. So, kada region po, meron po kaming regional boards and they conduct minimum wage determination process in accordance with our guidelines po and the Republic Act 6727 or the Wage Rationalization Act. Next slide, please. So, ang isang wage order po ay dapat hindi ma-disturb yan within 1 year or within a period of 12 months from effectivity of the current wage order. So, may mga nagtatanong po sa amin, how often ba nag-i-issue ng wage order ang mga regional boards? I cannot really answer you directly kung how often, but as a rule, within a period of 12 months, dapat hindi disturb ang ating wage order. Kasi yung how often would depend upon the wage boards and would depend upon the socio-economic conditions of the regions. Next. So the basis of minimum wage rate, so once na mag-issue po ng minimum wage orders ang ating mga regional boards, no, the basis of the computation of the daily rate is the 8 hours of work. So that's the normal working hours which shall not exceed 8 hours of workday. Next. So who are covered by the minimum wage orders? So all minimum wage earners in the private sector, regardless of their position, designation, or status of employment, and irrespective of the method by which they are paid, are covered. So kung may question po kung applicable ba ang minimum wage order sa mga probationary employees, yes, it is applicable. Sa mga contractual, yes. Sa mga permanent, yes. So for as long as they are minimum wage earners, applicable po ang ating mga wage orders. However, meron mga certain employees or workers that are not covered by the wage orders, and these are the kasambahays or our domestic workers because they have a separate wage order for that. Those persons in the personal service of another are not covered. And of course, workers of duly registered barangay microbusiness enterprises. So yung tinatawag po nating BAMB or BMBE are not covered by the minimum wage orders because they are exempted because but they have to get the certificate of authority from the Department of Trade and Industry. Next slide, please. Kapag nag-i-issue po ng minimum wage or ng wage orders ang ating mga regional boards, some establishments cannot comply. So we also have exemptable categories, or we allow these establishments to file for an application for exemption from compliance with the wage order, and they file it with their respective regional boards. So kunwari ay yung isang establishment ay located in the NCR, then they have to file the application before the RTWPB or the Regional Board of NCR. So what are the exemptable categories? So they can file retail or service establishments employing not more than 10 workers can file for exemptions, and establishments affected by natural calamities or human-induced disasters can also file for exemption. Next. So what are the criteria for exemption? If you are a retail or service establishment employing not more than 10 workers, you have to make sure that you are engaged in the retail or sale of goods and services to end users for personal or household use. So hindi pwede po yung wholesale ang bentahan, kailangan retail. And that you are regularly employing 10 workers for an aggregate period of at least 6 months in a calendar year. Next slide. So how about the establishments adversely affected by natural calamities and human-induced disasters? So there are 3 criteria here. So the establishment must be located in an area covered by a declaration of state of calamity issued pursuant to Section 16 of Republic Act 10121. The next criteria or the next requirement is that the calamity must have occurred within 6 months prior to the effectivity of the wage order. So where the calamity occurred during the life of the wage order, the establishments may still apply for exemption, but only with respect to the tranches that are yet to be implemented. So there are instances po kasi na may mga regional tripartite wages and productivity boards na yung wage increases po nila ay in tranches. So for example, wage increase is 90 pesos. So, yung ibang wage boards po natin, in tranches siya binibigay. Like for example, 30 pesos upon the effectivity, 30 pesos after 3 months, then 30 pesos after 3 months again or after 6 months. So if there are tranches left, they may still apply but only with respect to the tranches covered. And the last requirement is that the business enterprise affected by the pandemic must submit an audited financial statement for the last 2 years stamp received by the BIR or the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Next slide. So if the application is approved by the regional boards, it is only effective for 1 year from the effectivity of the wage order. So after 1 year, they have to pay na po yung minimum wage na nakalagay din sa wage order. So the period for filing of the exemption is within 75 days from the date of the publication of the wage order. So where will you find the date of the publication of the wage order? You can always find that dun mismo po sa wage order, or kung walang nakalagay dun sa wage order, you can visit our website sa NWPC website po. Doon po makikita yung mga different wage orders ng mga regional boards. Next. So for NCR, they have a new wage order, which is wage order NCR-24. So kung makikita po natin dito, ang date of publication niya ay nung June 13 sa Philippine Star. Date of effectivity is July 16, and the deadline for filing of the exemption is tapos na pala, September 13, 2023. Next. So dito po makikita natin yung increase natin. There's a 40 peso increase sa non-agriculture from 570 naging 610. And sa agriculture, service or retail establishments employing 15 workers or less, and manufacturing establishments regularly employing less than 10 workers, from 533 may increase na 40 pesos and now it's 573. Next. Sa NCR po, they have, sa Region 4A, or this is Calabarzon, this is wage order 4A-20. The date of publication is September 8, 2023. Date of effectivity is September 24. And the deadline for filing of the exemption is on November 22, 2023. Next. So, iba naman po yung wage order ng ating Region 4A or Calabarzon because they have different corridor areas, or the areas in Calabarzon are divided into growth corridor areas, meron ding emerging areas. So, for the growth corridor area, makikita nyo po dyan, nakalagay po yung mga covered areas, extended metropolitan area, component cities, first-class municipalities. Next slide. Sa emerging growth areas, makikita nyo yung second and third class municipalities covered. And sa resource-based area, nandyan yung fourth, fifth, and sixth class municipalities. So pasadahan lang po natin yung ating wage order. Mapapansin naman po natin yung increase, and it's now for this area 520 naging then 479 na po yung bago. Sa agriculture, 479, 425, and sa retail and service establishment na employing not more than 10 employees, 385. Next. So, ito pa po yung sa second and third class, sa emerging growth area, saka sa resource-based area. Sa non-agriculture, 425. Agriculture, 385. Sa retail and service establishments employing not more than 10 employees, 385. For the resource-based areas, 4th to 5th and 6th class municipalities, 385, 385, and 385. Next. Sa growth corridor area, dyan na po makikita natin, from 470 naging 520, from 429 naging 479. Next. Okay, so makikita ulit po natin yung ibang increases. Next slide, please. Next. Next. Okay. Medyo marami po kasi ito. Anyway, madali na lang po naman itong maintindihan agad. The Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Board 7 or the Cebu Central Visayas nag-issue rin po ng wage order number RO 7-24. It was published on September 15, 2023 and became effective on October 1. Then the deadline for filing of the exemption is on November 29, 2023. Next. So, sa geographical areas po ng ating Region 7, it is classified into 3 classes, Class A, Class B, and Class C. Yung Class A po is the expanded Metro Cebu. Usually, this is composed of the component cities or highly urbanized cities of Cebu. And then yung Class B, then sa Class C po naman is yung other municipalities. Next. So for the Class A, from 435, naging 468. For Class B, from 397, naging 430. And for Class C, from 387, and naging 420 na po. So, for the agriculture and non-agriculture with less than 10 workers, sa Class A from 425, 458 na po. Sa Class B from 392, 425 na po. And sa Class C from 382 to 400, naging 415 na po. Next. So, what are the different sectors in our wage order? So, makikita nyo po dito, nahati siya sa non-agriculture. So, the economic activities under the industry and service sector, retail and service establishments regularly employing not more than 10 workers are part of the non-agriculture. However po kasi because of the scale and nature of the operations, sometimes there is a special or lower rate for them. So, inuulit ko lang po na yung retail and service establishments, part po siya ng non-agriculture, pero sa mga wage orders po natin, nagkakaroon siya ng special rate kasi nga iba yung kanilang scale and nature of operations. Next. Pag sinabi po nating agriculture, so there are 5 bullets here. Makita po natin, nandyan yung cultivation, nandyan yung dairying, culturing of fish, or any activity performed by the farmer in a farm. But it does not include the manufacturing and or processing of sugar, coconut, abaca, tobacco, pineapple, aquatic, or other farm products. Next slide. So retail establishment po, we should always remember that the sale of goods to end users must be for personal or household use. Kaya kanina, ine-emphasize ko po na hindi po dapat ito for wholesale. So the establishment also must be regularly employing not more than 10 workers. And so kanina nabanggit ko nga that wholesale activity, if the establishment performs wholesale activities, it shall lose its retail character po. Next. Pag service establishment naman po, an entity principally engaged in the sale of services to individuals for their own or household use. They should regularly employ not more than 10 workers po. Next. Okay, so let's start with ito yung pinakaabangan niya, yung wage distortion. Maiksi lang naman itong wage distortion. Actually, we have issued an advisory regarding this or wage advisory number 1, series of 2023. You can find that in our website po. Bisitahin nyo na lang din po. And you will find there the definition, the legal basis, the jurisprudence, and the procedure in correcting the wage distortions. And naka-attach din po doon yung 7 suggested formulas po natin. So what is wage distortion? No? Before I start this po pala, I would like to ask the audience, how do we view compensation? Paano po ba natin nasasabi na ang compensation po ba natin, we treat it as a motivation to our employees? Do we treat it as an investment to human resource or investment to people? So can I ask the audience, no, how do we view compensation po? Kindly type na lang po, no? So yes, so some said they view, ayan, They view compensation as a motivation, investment, compliance, reward. So lahat po kayo tama, no? And now po we view compensation, it is more of an investment in human resources because we know that if we invest in human resources, it could yield positive results, no? So considering our perspective on compensation, I would like to emphasize also compensation management because in compensation management, we usually do analysis of the compensation structure, no? We design, we evaluate, we implement the compensation structures. And part of the compensation management is correcting or rectifying wage distortions. So, under Article 124 of the Labor Code po, medyo mahaba yung definition ng wage distortion, no? But this is a situation where an increase in prescribed wage rates results in the elimination or severe contraction of the intentional quantitative difference in wages or salary rates between and among employee groups in an establishment as to effectively obliterate the levels of wage structures based on skills, or the distinctions in such wage structure based on skills, length of service, or other logical basis of differentiation. So in other jurisdictions po, or in other countries, they call wage distortion as wage disparity or wage inequity. So kanina nga po, dito sa ating slide, no, nabanggit dito, kailan ba nangyayari yung wage distortion? So, ang wage distortion po nangyayari when the implementation of a mandated wage increase results in the elimination or severe contraction of intentional quantitative difference in wage or salary rates. So, kadalasan po kasi, 'di ba, nagkakaiba-iba yung ating mga empleyado because they have in terms of salary because they have different skills, different educational backgrounds, we also consider seniority and others, no? So, yung pagkakaiba-iba ng ating mga empleyado, nagkakaroon din ng pagkakaiba-iba sa rate. So, ang simple example lang nitong wage distortion. For example, we have two assistants, no? Assistant 1 and Assistant 2. Si Assistant 1, ang dating sweldo niya ay let's say ang new minimum wage ngayon sa NCR is 610, no? So, ang dating sweldo niya ay 580, no? Si Assistant 2, ang sweldo niya ay 620. So, dahil sa new minimum wage order, dahil sa wage order ng ating NCR, from 580, magiging 610 na si Assistant 1. Si Assistant 2 magiging 620 pa rin ba? So, ibig sabihin, nagkaroon na lang ng 10 peso difference, no? Si Assistant 1, 610, si Assistant 2, naging 620. Ang question doon, nakakomply ka nga sa minimum wage ni Assistant 1 na 610, pero si Assistant 2 ba, sa tingin mo, hindi ba siya magrereklamo? Kasi 10 piso na lang yung diferensya niya sa Assistant 1 natin. So, another scenario is, paano kung si Assistant 1 ay bagong empleyado lang, fresh graduate, no? Tapos si Assistant 2 ay matagal na siya, 10 years na siya, sabihin natin. So, si Assistant 1 na bago, 610, si Assistant 2, 620. So, ang mangyayari is parang madedemotivate si Assistant 2 natin, no? Na parang konti na lang yung difference namin considering ang tagal-tagal ko na dito sa ating kumpanya. So, yung wage distortion, in the correction of wage distortion is very important po para maayos natin yung mga ganitong klaseng issues, no? So, ang isa pa nating dapat tandaan na ito pong i-discuss ko ngayon ay correction of wage distortion by virtue of a mandated wage increase because there are instances na nagkakaroon ng wage distortion because there would be voluntary increases ng kumpanya. So for example, sa collective bargaining agreement, nag-increase sila. O kaya meron tinatawag na anniversary increase. So yung mga ganun po ay hindi covered ng aking discussion because yung nasa law lang kasi is wage distortion or correction of wage distortion because of the issuance of wage orders. Next. So, kanina nabanggit ko po yung intentional quantitative differences. So, we do this because of the job evaluations and we evaluate our jobs or our positions based on the nature of tasks, the skills, education and training, length of service, scope of responsibility, and years of related experience. No? Meron din yung tinatawag na other logical basis of differentiation. So, ano pa kaya yung sa tingin nyo kung bakit nagkakaiba-iba yung ating mga empleyado? Can I get some answers from our audience po, from our participants? Aside dito sa nature of tasks, skills, education, and training, sa tingin nyo po ano po kaya yung iba pa nating differentiation? Bakit nagkakaiba-iba ang job? Job levels, ano pa? Work performance, correct? Expertise, correct? Actual performance and work ethics, experience. Merong higop sa boss. Okay yun ah. And the complexity of work, seniority, experience, no? So, ang isa din sa ating madalas makalimutan, may politics, no? So, ability, ayan. So, dapat po yung pinag-uusapan natin, logical basis of differentiation. Kasi ang daming may hugot na iba, no? Ability, politics, at saka, ano na nga yung isa, higop sa boss. Pero yung discussion po natin dito is yung logical basis of differentiation. So tama naman yung mga nabanggit ng iba. So yung iba naman, hindi ko naman sinasabing tama or mali, pero nangyayari po iyon. Ang isa din sa madalas nating makalimutan no, sa logical basis differentiation, lalo na ngayon nung nagkaroon ng pandemic, is yung hazards ng occupation or yung hazards na na-experience ng ating employees. Kaya sila nagkakaiba-iba sa wages or compensation. So thank you so much po sa mga participants. So may favoritism pa na humabol. Maraming salamat po. Next. So ano ba yung tinatawag natin na elimination or severe contraction? So kanina yung example ko from 610 to 620, possible na severe contraction lang yon. Elimination, pag nangyari pareho na silang 610, no? Or yun, ibig sabihin nun, zero na yung difference nila kasi yung intended quantitative differences nila ay naging zero na. So mamaya, titignan, may mga examples po kaming ibibigay kung ano yung ibig sabihin namin ng elimination or severe contraction. So pag sinabi naman nating severe contraction kasi, ito yung more than 50% na of the intended quantitative differences in the pay between two groups of workers in an establishment. So bibigyan po namin kayo ng example later. Next. Okay. So, for distortion to exist, the law does not require elimination or total disappearance of quantitative salary differentials. Severe contraction thereof is enough. So, nabanggit ko nga, hindi kailangan na nagkapantay na sila ng sweldo. Pwedeng konti lang yung difference nila or yung severe yung gap pala nila. Next. Okay, ano po ba yung wage distortion elements? Hindi porket nagkaroon na ng gap yung kanilang salary, masasabi na natin na wage distortion yon. Kailangan po ay isipin din natin na pasok ba siya sa mga requirements ng wage distortion. So ano-ano po itong mga requirements na to? Una, there should be hierarchy of positions with corresponding salary rates. So sa isang company, usually, 'di ba, meron tayong organizational chart. So doon yung makikita yung mga hierarchy of positions natin. And sa hierarchy of positions natin, nandoon din yung mga salary rates. Sa government kasi iba yung aming yung hierarchy of positions. Then ang tawag naman namin sa compensation or yung wage namin is yung tinatawag naming salary grade. Nakadepende siya sa salary grade 1, 2, 3, ganun po. So, pangalawang element is that there should be a significant change in the salary rate of the lower pay class without a concomitant increase in the salary rates of the higher ones. So, kanina dun sa example natin, yung admin assistant 1 or yung assistant 1, nag-increase yung salary niya, pero yung assistant 2 na mas higher sa kanya, hindi nag-increase yung salary. Pangatlo, there should be an elimination, or actually this is not only an elimination but severe contraction of the distinction between the two levels. And pang-apat, existence of the distortion in the same region. Yung pang-apat po, madalas nangyayari ito sa mga branches. So yung mga companies na may branches. Kasi for example, meron kang branch 1 sa NCR tapos yung branch 2 mo nasa region 1. Si branch 1 sa NCR nag-issue ng wage order, then biglang magrereklamo si branch 2 sa region 1 na bakit ganon? Nagkakaroon na ng wage distortion kasi nag-increase yung salary nila tapos yung mga matataas dito sa amin ay affected na sa region 1. So, ang sinasabi po ng ating jurisprudence, dapat po yung existence ng wage distortion is within the same region lang. So, ia-apply natin yung correction of wage distortion para lang sa NCR lang. Okay, so hindi pwedeng magreklamo yung nasa Region 1 na merong wage distortion kasi wala pa namang in-issue na wage order sa kanila. Next. So, ito po yung typical company structure natin. No? So, merong level A, B, C, D, and E. Next. So, for example, ang mga salary rates po natin, si employee A, meron siyang 570, si employee B, 590, si employee C, 610 ang salary niya, si employee D, 640, at si employee E ay 700. Next. So, ang question po dito ulit, mandatory ba na i-correct natin yung wage distortion kapag may nangyayari ng wage distortion sa company natin? Kapag ka voluntary yung wage adjustment, kanina nabigay ko yung example like may CBA increase, ang sinasabi po ng ating Supreme Court, the mere factual existence of distortion does not result in an obligation to rectify it without a law or other source of obligation. No? So, pero kung ang wage distortion ay nangyari because of the wage order, ang sinasabi ng Supreme Court, the law compels the parties to correct wage distortion, but it allows voluntary modes of resolution or settlement of this distortion. Next. So, is it mandatory to correct wage distortion where the application of any prescribed wage increase by virtue of a law or wage order issued by the regional board results in distortion of the wage structure within an establishment? The employer and the union shall negotiate to correct the distortions. Meron pong procedure ito, but this one is lifted from the labor code. So the actual procedure then ay nasa labor code. Next. We have to also take note din po pala na in cases where there are no collective agreements or recognized labor unions, the employer and the worker shall endeavor to correct such distortions. Next slide. Ayan. So, eto na po yung pinaka-complete procedure natin in correcting wage distortion. For organized firms, pag sinabi po nating organized yung firms, ibig sabihin po nito, meron pong union or may tinatawag tayong labor union. Pag unorganized po yung firms, ibig sabihin po nito, wala po tayong labor union. So kung organized ang firms, ang step 1 po is that the employer and the union shall negotiate. Wag na po nating paabutin na umakyat pa tayo sa different levels ng ating dispute, no? So, ang sinasabi po ng ating labor code, ang step 1 po ay kailangan mag-negotiate ang employer saka ang union. Ang step 2, if hindi pa rin kayo okay sa step 1, you have to settle through the grievance procedure in your collective bargaining agreement. Pag hindi pa rin kayo okay, you have to go through voluntary arbitration. So hanggang step 3 lang po tayo dyan. Pagka naman unorganized firms po or tinatawag nating walang union, ang employers and the workers shall negotiate, no? Kapag ka po hindi pa rin okay yung negotiations, they have to go through the mandatory conciliation mediation. Ito po yung tinatawag nating SENA or the Single Entry Approach of the National Conciliation Mediation Board. If hindi pa rin okay, they may resolve it through the labor arbiter or may be submitted by both parties through voluntary arbitration. Next. Okay. In correcting wage distortion, is it necessary to restore the original cap? No? Ang sinasabi po ng ating jurisprudence or ng ating Supreme Court, kapag ka po, for example, ang dati nilang difference ay 20 pesos, and then you corrected it no, using our formulas or kunyari gumawa din kayo ng ibang formula nyo. Pero nung kinorect nyo, instead na 20 pesos yung naibalik nyong difference nila, naging 18 pesos na lang or 19 pesos. Ang sinasabi ng Supreme Court, hindi naman kailangan up to the last peso or up to the last centavo ang maibalik nyo. So okay na yung 18 pesos from 20 pesos before 18 pesos na ngayon or 19 pesos. So restoring a substantial or significant cap is acceptable po. Next. Okay. Kadalasan po, no, ang tanong din sa amin, kapag ka merong wage distortion sa isang kumpanya, pwede po bang mag-strike or lockout yung ating strike meaning temporary stoppage of work ng ating mga empleyado? Pag lockout naman po means it means the temporary refusal of the company or the establishment to furnish work to our workers. So kung merong wage distortion, pwede bang mag-strike or lockout? Ang sinasabi po ng ating Supreme Court ay hindi po pwede. So disputes arising from wage distortion is non-strikeable. Hence, strikes or lockouts and other concerted action by the union or management are illegal. Next. Can workers receive the prescribed wage rates pending the resolution of a distortion issue? So, for example, habang merong usapan tungkol sa wage distortion, can they receive the prescribed wage rates? Anong sagot natin? Yes, the workers can receive the prescribed wage rates pending the resolution of a wage distortion issue. Next slide. So, ito po ay nandoon din sa Section 124 of the Labor Code as amended by Republic Act 6727. So, that should be Article 124 of the Labor Code. Next. So, ayan, may example po tayo dito kung paano natin malalaman na merong wage distortion. Ang una nating alamin, di ba, ang unang requirement is that merong structure, tapos merong increase, meron ding existence of wage distortion. So, ang pinaka-question po palagi sa amin, paano natin malalaman kung if there is an elimination or if there is a severe contraction of the intentional quantitative difference. So, for example po, meron tayong isang administrative staff, ang kanyang qualifications ay he is a college graduate, and no related work experience required. So, ang wage niya before the effectivity of the wage order of NCR is 570. Dahil nga, nagkaroon ng wage order ang NCR, naging 610 na siya. Okay. Si accounting assistant naman po ay accounting graduate with at least 1 year of related work experience. No? So, ang wage niya before the effectivity of the wage order ay 640 pesos. So kung makikita po natin dito, from 500, kung wala pang wage order, ang wage ay 570 ni admin staff, tapos si accounting assistant ay 640. Sa tingin nyo po, ano po ba ang intended quantitative difference nila? So, you have to minus 640 minus 570, ilan po? Tanong ko sa ating audience. 640 minus 70. 570. So, yan. So, ang intended difference po nila noon ay 70 pesos. Okay. Pero, nung nagkaroon ng wage order, dating 570 si admin staff, naging 610 na siya. So, kung makikita nyo na, po natin, from 70 pesos na difference nila, magiging 30 pesos na lang. Kasi 640 minus 610, that's 30 pesos. Tama po ba? Yes, correct. Next. So, ang question, is there a wage distortion? Ayan, makikita natin. Next. Ayan. So, kanina, no, kinompute natin, no, intended difference is 70 pesos. Then, the resultant difference after the wage order has been issued is 30 pesos. Next. Ang question po, meron bang severe contraction? Ano ang sagot natin? Next. Ayan. Paano natin i-compute yung severe contraction? So, makikita po natin dyan na you have to know the intended difference and the resultant difference. So, yung Q1 po natin, 640 minus 570, that's 70. Q2, 640 minus 610 is 30 pesos. So, ang gagawin lang po natin, Q1 minus Q2 divided 1 times 100 and we arrive at 57%. Kanina, ang sinasabi po natin, 'di ba? Para malaman natin kung meron talagang severe contraction, dapat 50% pataas. So, in this case, 57% po ang ating nakuhang result. So, is there an elimination or severe contraction? The answer here is not elimination, but this is a severe contraction. Next. Correct? Tama po, Miss Marjorie, severe contraction po iyan. So, ang question natin ngayon, di ba, from 610 si admin staff, si accounting assistant 640. Ano yung gusto natin or paano natin ma-resolve itong kanilang wage distortion? Papayag ba si accounting assistant na 640 pa rin siya, na 30 pesos na lang ang difference nila? Next. So, doon po sa kanina no, na question, hindi ko po nilagyan ng answer kung ano yung pinaka magiging result ng difference nila. Kasi merong 7 formulas po na sinasuggest. 7 lang po ito. In my experience, because I came from Region 1 before, some of the establishments would resort to having their own formula. So, pwede rin po na gumawa kayo ng sariling formula as long as mapapa-agrihan po ninyo with the employees. So, eto lang po ay mabilisan lang wage distortion formulas natin. Nico, please. So, ayan po ang ating kanina yung assumptions natin. Next slide, please. So, meron po tayong tinatawag na Pineda formula. Hindi ko na po iisa-isahin ito. Makikita nyo naman po yung formula. Alam ko magagaling ang HR natin sa math, lalo na yung mga payroll officers natin. This is Formula 1. Next slide, please. So, ito po yung example po natin kanina. Ayan. So, pagka na-in-adjust po natin, ano na po yung magiging result? So, ayan, may 675.62. Ang laki po nito. Next. Then, meron din po tayong tinatawag na Pineda-Crusoe formula. Next. So, ayan po. The new daily wage rate, pag kinompute natin, magiging 671.73. Next. Philippine Construction Supply formula. Next. Ayan, iba din po yung computation. Next. Ito po yung wire rope formula. Next. Ayan, 671 naman po ang naging computation. Next. Percentile approach. Next. Ayan, 672. Next. Bagtas approach. Ay, pasensya na po ha. I know medyo mabilis pero we will send naman po itong presentation namin para hindi po kayo mag picture para ayan. So next po. Ayan yung computation. Sa Bagtas formula medyo mataas po ang naging computation, 684. Next. And this is Jimenez of Freneo de las Alas formula. Next. Ayan. Dito po not applicable kasi depende po ito kasi ito pong formula kasi na ito ay para lang po sa mga maliliit na increases. Next. Is that the end, Nico? Okay. Joda formula. So kung makikita nyo po, ito po yung magiging comparative, ito po yung comparative wage distortion adjustment results based doon sa 7 formula na nabanggit natin kanina. Next. Ayan. Next slide, please. Next. Is that the end, Nico?
Yeah. Yes po.
Okay, so anyway po, no, yung formula po kasi if you will discuss this one by one, it would really take a lot of hours po. Kaya i-email na lang po namin sa inyo. We will send it to Sprout, then bahala na po siguro si Sprout kung paano i-disseminate sa inyo. Maraming salamat. So that's the end of my presentation. Miss Shelleen, am I going to answer all the questions na or later pa po?
Later pa po, Attorney
Okay,
Faye.
sige. Thank you.
Thank you po. So thank you again, Attorney Faye, for the very informative presentation. I'm sure everyone here learned a new thing about wage distortion. I hope it cleared up everyone's questions. But if you still have questions for Attorney Faye, submit those now via the Q&A tab on your screen and we'll address those later. Again, please submit the questions via the Q&A tab. And to ensure your compliance with the Philippine Labor Code, we are offering a free download of our HR compliance ebook. Simply scan the QR code displayed on your screen. So I'll give you guys about a minute to scan and download our free HR compliance ebook. I hope everyone is safe, especially those who live near Taal, given the circumstances surrounding Taal volcano. Okay, so I hope everyone's gotten a free copy of our HR compliance ebook. Now, as for our second session, we are fortunate to be joined by 2 of Sprout's best resource person for today's episode. One is a highly skilled legal and compliance professional with expertise in legal technology practice, labor practice and litigation, labor workplace and audit, mergers and acquisitions, corporate housekeeping, and other special projects. A dual master's degree in MBA and Juris Doctor from DLSU FEU, Consortium and HR with a focus on labor relations from Georgetown University, Washington, D.C. He brings a unique blend of legal and HR knowledge to his practice. As the head of professional services for HR and legal at Sprout Solutions, and a licensed SHRM SCP professional, Attorney Trinidad provides strategic legal guidance, protecting clients' interests, ensuring compliance with regulatory requirements, and maintaining impeccable corporate housekeeping standards. His focus areas are labor policy and practices audit, data protection, technology law, and corporate housing. He is Attorney J. Ryan Trinidad, Director for Legal and Compliance of Sprout Solutions. Hi,
Thank you.
Attorney Ryan.
Hi, Shailene. Thank you for your introduction. Thank you also to Chief Faye and of course to our participants here. To everyone, good morning. But let me just say my apology first if you would be hearing me coughing from time to time. I don't know. Since last night I've been having a bad cough and dry throat. Hopefully this is not because of the VAG, which is a new term that I learned, no, and the smog. But I'm praying that everyone is safe, no. So hopefully this will be over soon, no. So for my session, no, I just want to emphasize the presentation that Chief Faye made, no, and the underlying tone there. It's basically underscoring the critical role that fairness and equality do in compensation, no. And I want to say, and really obvious, no, that fair compensation is not only an enticement. Hindi lang yan yung parang ano natin, no, pang-akit natin sa mga prospective employees natin, but also, this is a great motivator for our current ones to really excel in their organization. Kaya nga, when there are applicants that are really, or even current employees, no, you would really hear them seeking to align their financial interests with the company's package. Pag nag-a-apply sila, you would normally hear, ano po ba yung sahod na makukuha ko? Ganito po kasi yung nakukuha ko sa aking previous employer, and this is what I think I should be getting, and what are the benefits that you have for me, no? And the good thing about that is that we have indispensable tools that can help us reinforce the importance of fairness and equity in compensation. And these are the two tools that I will be discussing alongside with the next speaker. This is the compensation leveling structure and also the salary benchmarking, no? So next. So usually employers would ask really like, how do we figure out na ang pay structure namin is fair and equitable? Of course, this cannot be a matter of just personal opinion. Otherwise, magkakaroon tayo ng biases, and all the more that we will not be able to resolve the problem of compensation or pay structure in the organization, no? Thankfully, as I've mentioned earlier, there are tools that are available in the market or out there that you can avail of, such as the compensation leveling structure and also the salary benchmarking. And the two of these are really related to each other, no? So think of it this way. Si salary benchmarking is the foundation of compensation leveling structure, no? But to define what a compensation leveling structure in a very laymanized manner, no, it's basically the fair way for a company to decide how much money you would be paying your employees, no, based on their jobs and based on how well they do their jobs, no. So ang analogy ko dyan, every time I get to explain to our clients who are availing of compensation leveling structure and salary benchmarking, no, it's like, you know, really sharing candy with friends and making sure that everyone gets the fair amount of candy that they deserve, no? So ganun din yung compensation leveling structure. Now, but in reality, we should all understand that it's really more complex than that. And I say so because in the organization, when you are doing the pay structure, you have to consider the employees' job responsibilities. You have to consider also the complexity of the task that she needs to do for the organization, and even how critical the position is to the organization, no? That's why later on, if really the concern is the budget for the organization and you don't know which one to prioritize, always on top of the positions that will get the increase are usually the positions that are critical to the organizations, no? So nagkakaroon kasi minsan ng tinatawag na phasing sa kung ano yung mauunang bibigyan natin ng mga salary increases or ng pay grade structuring, no? So what else? As mentioned by Chief Faye, you should also consider the experience and education. You should also consider the tenure of the individual and the performance, and to a lot of extent, even the geographical location, because wages really differ based on where the location of the job is, no? So iba ang pasahod dito sa Kamaynilaan versus sa pasahod sa mga karatig nating probinsya. So these are the things that you really have to consider when doing your pay grade structure. Next. So, ang madalas natin ding maitatanong, no, kailan ba natin kailangan gawin yung compensation leveling structure? When do we have to assess the pay structure of our organization? sometimes it's really, and admittedly, no, it's really routinary for us to address the pay structure when there's a legal mandate, no. So halimbawa, naglabas uli si NWPC or si DOLE ng bagong minimum wage, no. So that's the time we get to revisit kung ano ba talaga yung compensation ng mga empleyado natin. But, the complication there is that if we merely follow the law, no, without really thoroughly reassessing the entire structure of our organization, it becomes really problematic because it may lead to compensation issues na hindi natin na-address from time to time. And therefore, there are other indications aside doon sa legal compliance that would really show to us that it's high time for us to do compensation leveling structure. And we can categorize them into two. The list is not exhaustive, but this is the list and the symptoms that we are seeing that are very prevalent among our clients, no? So internally, these are the symptoms that you can observe within your organization. And the external column that you're seeing on your screen right now are the symptoms that are coming from the external factors, no, that are outside of your control, but would certainly affect the way you structure your compensation. So say, for the internal, when you observe that many of your employees are leaving because they're not happy with how much they're getting from your organization, and it might sound as cliche, but madalas nating naririnig na, umalis na si ganito because mas greener pasture na yung napuntahan niya, mas may malaking pasahod, na-poach na siya. So, kung meron tayong high employee turnover rate, would certainly call us to do a compensation leveling structure. That's number one. Second, if people really don't want to work in our organization because our organization, we pay less, no, than the others in the industry, and therefore we are having difficulty attracting and retaining them, then that's another symptom that we may want to consider, no? And as mentioned by Attorney Faye several times, that there are instances where employees are being paid higher than they're supposed to get, or they're being paid lower than they're supposed to get, causing problems really. Then that's another symptom that we may want to consider. Now, external, again, if there are, of course, legal updates, then you may have to consider that. But alongside that, and the partner of that internally is that if you're getting complaints for wage disparities and fair pay, nakakakuha na kayo ng SENA dahil meron kayong wage distortion concern, then definitely that would, warrant a CLS already, or a compensation leveling structure, no? And then the last one is when there are changes in the market and the industry trend. So these are all factors and symptoms rather that would really warrant you to do compensation leveling structure. I'm pretty sure that this list resonates so much, because these are the common concerns that our CLS and salary benchmarking clients are really raising to our experts, no. Okay, next. Next slide, Shay. Okay, so how can we exactly leverage CLS to win and retain talents? The first thing is we want to research and gather market data for you, no? Of course, we always have to start with accurate data, as this is really the foundation of the salary benchmarking, no? Hindi tayo pwedeng kumuha lang ng data na hindi natin ma-verify kung ano ba talaga at kung tama ba yung nilalaman ng mga datos na yun. Otherwise, either our salary benchmarking will be very, very skewed or totally not aligned with what the market dictates us to have, no? So again, it's really important to have accurate market data, no? And the good thing about having an accurate market data, it will really drives us to have an informed decision, no, based on what's really available to us. Because sometimes we have biases that we are not noticing. Like, sa tingin ko malaki na tong sahod nito kasi na-increasean ko na siya ng 10,000, 20,000. But when you do your salary benchmarking, you would realize that the employee is getting below, no? Or sometimes you think that the employee is getting lower, but when you check the salary benchmark, mas mataas pala yung nakukuha niya despite the job responsibilities being similar across the industry, no? So again, it's important to have accurate market data. But maybe the question there is that, so attorney, where do we get the right sources, no, for the accurate data? The good thing about our government, no, and as mentioned by Attorney Faye, they get to release annual reports about the salary benchmarks, no? So palagi po yung may nilalabas, especially sa website ng PSA, I think this data are coming from the Department of Labor, because remember, we regularly submit our reports to DOLE, the annual wages. So maybe I'm just speculating, but I guess siguro yun yung baseline nila in doing this salary benchmark, no? But the limitation with our government data is it is incomplete insofar as the job coverage is concerned. The basic jobs are there, but there are job descriptions and tasks that are very unique, no? Very unique sa ating company. So hindi natin makikita doon sa database ng government, no? Plus, of course, it lack the detailed job description. So pag nakita niyo yung website ng PSA, makikita niyo lang doon engineer. But that's basically it, no? So the best alternative for the government, no, database is to look for a platform like Sprout, where it can offer you an up-to-date, precise compensation information for your various positions in the organization, no, and you can have data that's actually real time. So yung kasing sa government, you have to wait for 1 year and then another year para ma-publish nila. But with private providers, ang compensation is the data rather is actually real time. So there. Now, another thing that you may want to do is to really analyze your competitor practices, no? Why? Because your competitors will give you a great idea on how they structure their compensation packages and can help you identify what are really the trends, no? And the benchmarks in the market, no? And why your competitors? For obvious reason, no? Because they are in the same industry. So their compensation practices is squarely and directly applied to your talent pool. Kaya nga madalas nating naririnig, uy, yung mga tao natin nag-iikutan lang. Si sales ng manufacturing lumipat sa competitor na maging sales director din, competitor, because nag-iikutan lang naman talaga ang mga aplikante, no, ang mga empleyado sa industry kung saan sila nasanay na. So there. So next. Okay, the next thing that I would really suggest that we do is we define the compensation philosophy, no, because this will, set the tone. This will serve as our guiding principle and values on how we will dictate how much our organization is willing to compensate our employees, no? Of course, there's no rule of thumb here. Katulad nga anong sinabi ni Attorney Faye, this will really be a matter of management prerogative, because hindi natin alam kung ano yung guiding principle natin. But there are methodologies out there that can help you define what will be your compensation philosophy. So say, for instance, maybe you want to pay your employees near the industry average salaries, or maybe you just want to match, or maybe you want to go a little higher. Certainly, based on my experience, I haven't heard of any clients in our professional services that seek to go below, no? I don't think that's a good, strategy to do. Also, you can, base the compensation based on the skills and knowledge of the individual, instead of just the job titles. Baka mamaya nga legal counsel siya, pero mas marami palang ginagawa yung isang legal counsel at magkaiba sila ng pillar. So not just because both are legal counsel, both should be equally compensated, no? And then, of course, you may want also to compensate and reward loyalty and tenure, di ba? And maybe you even want to offer a comprehensive package, not just the salary base, but you also want to provide benefits, bonuses, and more employees for more benefits for employees' well-being. In other words, there's really no rule of thumb. You can have the combination of these, but it's really up to the management to determine under its circumstances what method would really best suit them. But how would you know? What do you have to consider? Siyempre, you have to consider the organizational needs, no? You have to consider the strategic direction of the organization, and to a lot of extent, and admittedly, the budget constraints as well. Like, gusto nga namin taasan, attorney, gusto nga namin i-adjust, but then we don't have much budget. So what do we do? Diba? So those are the things that you may want to consider in defining your compensation philosophy. Now, there's also a way to provide total compensation instead of just, increasing the base salary. And this matters because when you provide a clear picture of the total compensation to an applicant or to an employee, it will give them a picture of how much they are being valued by the organization, no? So minsan hindi lang salary base 'yan, pinag-uusapan din yan yung bonuses, benefits and perks. Now with salary benchmarking, the difference, the salary benchmarking only benchmarks the base salary, no? But there is also another tool which is benefits benchmarking, and the benefits benchmarking takes into account all the elements, no, that contribute to the employee's well-being, whether financial and non-financial, because sometimes, not all employees are only looking for, the money, no, or the compensation. They're really looking for the total compensation that would address their broader needs and expectations. So say for instance, sa amin kay Sprout, and for all the users of Sprout, you would see that meron kayong access sa tinatawag nating financial services, which is Instacash. So if you want to take a loan because you have an emergency, then you can basically get a loan in less than a minute or less than 2 minutes. No, you'll have the money already. And then Sprout also, and for our employees who avail of this, if you think that some of your employees are suffering from mental health or in need of psychological consultation, psychiatric consultation, meditation, we have a wellness program, no? And then also for engagement, this is internal to Sprout, no? We have free Muay Thai, we have free massage, and I think the company is even willing to provide free outdoor activities to our employees, no? And now we're curating what we so called as flexible benefits. So the way it will work is that if you don't use our sick leave, no, because probably in the entire year we were so healthy, so meron kaming mga natirang sick leave. So ang gagawin namin doon is we can convert it into another type of benefit. So we can convert it into like payments for premiums of our dependents, for HMO, o hindi kaya gamitin namin for outdoor activities, etc. So in other words, we are being provided a total compensation package. And these other benefits really address the non-financial side of the needs of an individual. So there. Next slide, please. So it's also important to provide transparency about compensation. No? Why? Because it really fosters trust between the employers and employees. No? And why so? Because when the trust is developed when the employee gets to know the decision-making process around how the employers arrive with the compensation. No? At least hindi sila blanco. They're not left groping in the dark as to how they got this salary, no? And there are so many ways that we can apply this. There are granular ways to make our compensation really, really transparent to our employees or in the workplace. For instance, you can create salary bands and for different job roles, and then you explain to the employees as to which salary band she would fall under, no? And if you have like a technology tool, like say Sprout HR, which is an online portal, you allow your employees to access this portal where they can view their compensation salary, even the history of their benefits, their tax information, etc. The online portal would certainly, create some sense of transparency and immediate access when they need when they need information about their compensation, no? And in Sprout, we even have, a salary structure compensation policy where we allow our employees to see the mechanics on how we determine our compensation internally. So I think all of these activities are geared towards making the compensation more transparent to the employees, no? And obviously, we also have to update our benchmark regularly because of the changing market conditions. I mean, the economic and industry changes would certainly affect what we would consider as competitive today. Tomorrow, baka iba na po talaga ang definition ng pagiging competitive, especially if we consider the inflation, which, would lose the value of our salary, no, because of the increase in cost of living. So siguro ang 200 na ang 600 na pasahod ngayon, mas maliit ang magiging value kapag tumataas sa mga presyo ng bilihin, say halimbawa ang bigas, no? So all of these will have to be factored in when doing your benchmark, and therefore would really necessitate that you update your benchmark on a regular basis. Next. Okay, and then I think the last one for the tips that I have on how we can leverage CLS for winning and retaining talent is for continuous improvement. No, let's just admit that market conditions, industry standards, and the job market itself, constantly evolve. So that being said, we have to continuously improve our pay structure as well, no, to factor in all these changing external factors. Next. So what will be the call to action for the employers? No? So number one, we really have to conduct a comprehensive salary review. We need to check if our pay structure is competitive and see if we need to make changes. If necessary, then we have to. And then in terms of doing the salary structure, it should be data-driven. Our decisions should be data-driven, meaning we should use accurate information to drive our pay decisions. No, if there's a need to adjust, then so be it. If we are capable of doing it, then all the more reason. No, and then we also have to to establish clear rules for pay. No, like make it really clear among your employees your policies and guidelines in terms of compensation. Like what would it take them what would it take your organization and your employees to have this much salary? So if those mechanics are really clear to them, there will be trust in the organization in terms of compensation structure, no, para hindi na sila nagbubulungan na, uy, balita ko na-increasean ka daw, paano ka na-increasean, di ba, etc. And if necessary, seek expert support, because I understand that all practitioners have the time to, and even the expertise to do the study for wage distortion, wage differential, etc. So all of this can be best addressed by an expert that can help your organization. Okay, next. So just to give you an idea of what we do in the compensation leveling structure, so this is the methodology that we use for our clients, and we have several clients already that avail of these services. But you would see that this is really scientific, a combination of both quantitative and qualitative. In the quantitative, we do predictive analysis as well. For the qualitative, we get to review job descriptions and get to compare them vis-a-vis the market job descriptions. No, but the first step for us is to form the experts, no, the team of experts that will help on your compensation leveling structure. So for Sprout, we have people that are really knowledgeable in the fields and in the fields of research, people from data science, people from statisticians, people that are human HR practitioners, and lawyers. No, so these are the composition of the team for our CLS. And then the next step for us is to really do some data collection around it. Data collection from our own database, and then data collection versus the external database. No? And then we get to do data analysis. So in the data analysis, we would determine whether the salary is within the range, nasa median ba siya, na outlier ba siya dahil extremely mataas siya or mababa siya, kung yung bang increase, naging skewed siya. So all of those will be part of the report that we will be presenting to our clients, no. And of course, sometimes you will be surprised that clients will really react na, uy, ganyan pala yung binabayaran namin. We don't know. We thought that we are below, or we thought that we are above, but then hindi pala ganon. And so makikita nyo rin yung connect nung pay structure nila doon sa mga symptoms na sabi ko kanina, like the high attrition, turnover, yung mga motivation, etc. And then lastly, we also help our clients to do implementation, because not all clients want to do the compensation leveling structure on their own, even if they are in the best position to do so, because they know their people, they know the culture, etc. Compensation leveling structure is really, how would I say this, a sensitive issue, so to speak, because there are a lot of changes. And when change happens, people get to be rattled. So they want to have a neutral party to explain pretty much everything to their employees, no, and to the management. But the good thing about it is that when it is experts that get to explain how the CLS should be, they tend to listen, just so because our decisions are really, and reports are really data-driven. No? Hindi kami kumukuha ng datos lang sa kung saan. So I think that ends my presentation, and I'll pass the virtual floor to Rafi to dovetail on the salary benchmarking more.
Now, to introduce our next speaker, Sir Rafi. He is a data consultant guiding the digital transformation initiatives of companies in the Philippines. He and AI responsibly driving organizational success. At Sprout, he is the head of data science, leading the development of Sprout's data products. He is pioneering the development of premier benchmarking tools that not only highlight disparities but also guide equitable compensation strategies. Let's give a warm welcome to Rafi Enriquez.
Thank you, Shay. All right. Let me begin by defining what salary benchmarking is. According to Indeed.com, salary benchmarking or compensation benchmarking is a method for determining the market rate for internal positions by analyzing the rates of external positions. Or quite simply, as Attorney Ryan mentioned, it's like comparing your job's pay with what's available in the market. This helps companies decide what is fair compensation to you compared to other places. Just so it's clear, benchmark is more of identifying point A and point B, like the target. And then compensation leveling service that Attorney Ryan mentioned is more of about taking that journey from point A to point B. All right, next slide, please. Today, we'll talk about these three things. The first, we'll talk about how salary benchmarking provides a competitive edge in the job market, how it enables data-driven decision-making, and how it allows you to have that proactive approach to wage dispute. So let's talk about the first point. Right now, in today's job market, it's really crucial for companies to offer competitive salaries to attract and retain talent. And based on our research, if you look at your screen, we found out through the Great Resignation Part 2 with Sprout's research that 67% of employees that resign cited or mentioned that inadequate compensation was the reason. This isn't actually far from statistics in the US, which is 63% resigned because they weren't paid properly. Now, of these people that resigned, 80% would have stayed if they were offered better salaries. So imagine that. It's avoidable attrition on the company's part if only they were just paid a little bit better. Now, looking at it globally, with LinkedIn, they did a study, the 2023 Workspace Learning Report. They found out that compensation and benefits was the #1 factor when considering a new job for employees. This is further supported by Willis Towers Watson's 2022 study on the importance of benefits. This one naman, kung kanina yung LinkedIn, it's more of a global study. The Willis Towers Watson study is more of a study for the Asia Pacific. What they found here was that pay was the top 1 factor across all generations. So that means whether you're a baby boomer, Gen X, millennial, or Gen Z, pay is the top factor. So what we're really trying to say is if you have salary benchmarking, you will be able to attract the top talent. In today's job market, it's of course sobrang ano naman yan, di ba? If the applicant or the candidate is really great at what he or she does, definitely maraming offers yan, di ba? So for them, they will gravitate towards organizations that not only recognize their skills, but also compensate them properly. Next slide, please. Yan. So let's talk about how it enables data-driven decision-making. Salary benchmarking provides that empirical evidence and actionable insights. So instead of us making decisions based on, let's say, assumptions, or sabi nga nila kanina, higop ng boss, or politics, or outdated data, HR professionals can utilize the data on the latest market trends to make informed decisions. Think about the salary benchmarking as more of like, let's say imagine you're sailing a ship, tulad dun sa image dun sa screen, and you're doing it without a compass. Now you might have an idea of where you need to go, pero without that tool to point you to where is the actual direction, you could end up going elsewhere. So let's say, for example, you wanted to go to Singapore, but then eventually you end up with Hong Kong. Ganon. So you're not getting to where you want to be. Salary benchmarking is that compass for compensation decisions, ensuring that you're headed towards the right direction. Next slide, please. Yan. Sige, so based on our research and talking to different users of salary benchmarking, we've been able to identify two common use cases or two common samples of when this is mostly applicable. So let's talk about Milo. He is the CEO of an agri-tech startup. Now they're a well-funded startup. The challenge that he has is, well, it's 2024 is coming, and right now, uso na we have yung annual business planning for next year, right? They want to start a new team within their organization. However, they don't have an idea of how these people should be paid, of how much budget to allocate for that team. If you have salary benchmark, you will be able to properly structure that team. You would know how much to allocate for them, for the entire team, and also for them individually. Now, another sample is Nina. She's a HR head of a hospital. For her naman, we hear that most of the time, some of the employees that she has under her company are complaining about yung hindi na pantay yung work, yung responsibilities, yung workload compared to the actual pay that they're getting. What salary benchmarking does is it provides that basis na parang, okay, this is the workload that you're doing. You should be paid as a lead instead of like an assistant lang. Or you should be a manager because you have this many people reporting to you and all of that. Salary benchmarking helps you do that. So what it really does is it ensures that there's fairness with your compensation. You're relying with yung current and accurate data so that less nga yung biases, yung higop sa boss, politics, and assumptions dun sa decision-making process. Next slide, please. And so salary benchmarking also allows you to have that proactive approach to wage disputes. Wage disputes normally lead to reduced morale, increased turnover, and sometimes even legal challenges, as was mentioned earlier. Now, what's good about it is if you're doing it regularly, you are able to identify discrepancies before they become major issues within your organization. Think of it not just as a tool for setting salaries, but rather it's more of a strategic way to communicate your value proposition to candidates. Parang kumbaga, what it does, it communicates to your employees, to your current employees, and then potential employees rin, that you are aware of the market, that you are in touch with what's happening, that you respect and reward them. That if there are any shifts in the market, you will adjust. So kumbaga, what it really does, it helps you to stand out from your competition, and then it also enhances your employer brand. Another example of how it helps you is it allows you to stay ahead of market shifts. Like recently, within the past 2-3 weeks or so, I've heard from different peers within the industry how they've been getting offers which are twice or thrice what they're currently making because of the demand for AI practitioners. Doing salary benchmarking allows HR professionals to stay ahead of that. Think of it as more of like exercise. Kasi di ba if let's say for example, you exercise once, you can't really expect na long-term health mo maganda na. Di ba? By doing salary benchmarking regularly, what you're doing is you're building trust within your organization so that you're saying na parang whatever happens, we will always adjust. Can you show that last point? Yeah. So what it really does is it prevents disputes and build trust with your employees. Now to summarize, next slide please. So we talked about how it provides the competitive edge in the job market. It allows you to track to a top. Paul, next slide please. Yeah, to attract top talent. And then it ensures the data that you get from salary benchmarking ensures that there's fairness with the compensation. And then last, it prevents disputes and build trust within your organization. Next slide, please. If you're interested to take advantage of our compensation strategies, to optimize your compensation strategies, you may scan this this QR code, and then take a talk to us about our benchmarking app with all of these free features and also our compensation leveling service. Let's help ensure that you have a great future, and then you are also a top choice for talent worldwide. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rafi, and of course, Attorney Ryan, for your very informative talk. I definitely learned a lot about compensation leveling structure, how data is collected, how it's used to create this, and how salary benchmarking truly is important for all companies to ensure that we address wage distortion and that we have our competitive advantage against our competitors. For Attorney Ryan and Rafi, please feel free to type them in the Q&A tab and we will address them shortly. Thank you. Again, please type them in the Q&A tab here in Zoom. So we have a few questions prepared for our panelists before we adjust the questions in the Q&A box. So the feedback poll will only take about 2 minutes of everyone's time. But this is crucial for everyone here attending our event to answer because this will help us in producing more relevant topics and delivering exceptional events such as this one for all our participants. The questions are currently displayed on your screen. So I hope everyone gets to answer so we can improve our topics, our events, and possibly create more interesting and engaging events for all of your concerns. I will give everyone a minute to answer the poll. All right, so thank you very much for participating in our survey, everyone. We appreciate your honest feedback as it will help us improve moving forward. So I hope everyone's done answering the survey, but if not yet, that's okay. You can take your time, think about your answers. Okay, so now we move on to the fireside chat or the Q&A session for today. I'd like to call back our speakers, Attorney Faye, Attorney Ryan, and Rafi. The floor is yours. You may now start asking your questions by using the Q&A tab. Okay, so let me open up the questions here.
Hi, Shay. I think there are 22 questions in the question and answer portion. And these are mostly related to the discussion of Chief Fay regarding the wage distortion. So do you want me to quickly go over them? Okay lang ba yun, Attorney
Sure,
Fay?
Attorney.
Sure. Sige, Attorney Fay, I'll start. So this is the first question from one of our attendees. No? So filing for exemption should be within 75 days after the newspaper publication. But wage order 4A-20 was published September 8 and effectivity is September 24. This is short of the 75-day period for filing the exception. Tama po ba?
If 75 days from the date of publication, so the deadline is on November 22, 2023 pa po.
Okay.
So, yun.
Thank you. Question from Ma'am Erlinda Reyes. Is there a way to align the minimum wage order of Calabarzon and Central Luzon to NCR to lessen traffic and people in the metro, ma'am? So also cost of living is even almost the same naman po on these three regions. So is there what's our response to that, Ma'am Faye?
I hope so. Pero po
Agreed.
kasi kaya po tayo may mga regional boards kasi iba-iba yung cost of living, iba-iba yung prices of commodities. And in the Omnibus Rules on Minimum Wage Determination as well as Republic Act 6727, may tinatawag kasi tayong standards or criteria for minimum wage fixing, no? Hindi po din kasi pare-parehas yung capacity to pay ng ating employer. So that's one consideration also. Kaya iba-iba din po talaga kung yung ating wages sa iba-ibang region. So aside from that, we also have to consider the needs of the workers and the families and also yung mga national development plans. So medyo mahabang usapin po ito pero ang answer ay wala pong way
Oo nga.
kasi iba-iba po talaga.
But ang sabi
Thank
nga
you.
po ng isa sa mga participants natin, prices of commodities are all the same regardless of where your location is, di ba? Ang bigas sa
Oh,
sa NCR ay kasing presyo rin ng sinandoming na bigas sa Calabarzon. So I think that's
opo.
the concern there. But anyway, thank you, Chief Faye. Chief Faye, can you please give examples of retail and service establishments?
So for example po ng retail establishment, yung mga sari-sari store natin, no, sa mga school supply stores natin, no. So sa service establishments, mga salons, and pwede rin yung mga patahian. So ang importante dapat, no, it caters to our households po. At
Okay.
saka hindi wholesale kung retail establishment. Salamat.
Okay, sige po. Is there any standards of difference to address wage distortion? I think aside from the formula, maybe some other things that we can do, Chief Faye, to address wage distortion.
You just have to remember lang, no, yung elements kasi yung iba nagko-compute na agad pero hindi pa pala na-kumpla yung elements. So yun
Okay.
muna dapat yung pinakamatandaan natin. So pagka nakumpleto na po natin yun na yung pinaka-standard And then you go to the computation, kailangan yung formula din, sabi ko nga suggested lang siya, no? So you can also develop your own formula po.
Okay, so I think that answers the next question of how would you know if which formula is applicable, no, of Ma'am Isa. So again, that's really up to the management if I get it correctly. Okay, but with just for me to understand and maybe for our audience as well, no. So Chief Faye, kahit iba-iba yung formula, that will still address the wage distortion, no. That's the ultimate goal, right? And
Yes po.
will it still be the same mathematical equation or result that you will get at the end?
No, sa iba-ibang
No.
formula, iba-iba din. So yung isa-send namin sa inyo, yung aside from my presentation, there's also an Excel form para makita nyo kung ano yung difference kada formula.
Oh,
Kasi
okay.
kung mapapansin niyo, merong ibang formula na mataas yung computation. It's because yung nag-develop nun is from the worker side, parang
Hmm.
gano'n. Tapos
Okay.
yung iba mababa kasi ang nag-develop mga employers. So, iba-iba
Oh,
pa.
okay. So, I think this is also a good segue to our next question na paano po dun sa unorganized group of employees who will represent us in the negotiation to correct the wage distortion kasi it's important for, for the employer as well for the organization to determine who will set the formula, di ba? So, I think that's the context of the next question.
Oo. So, parang ang question na 'to is who will lead the
Yeah.
employees kasi nga hindi
Mhm.
unorganized naman sila 'no. So, yung HR 'yan yung isa sa responsibility niyo 'no. You just have to gather those who are affected and then you ask them that someone, will represent them during the negotiations. If they can represent themselves naman, kung konti lang naman, edi sila na po lahat sana.
Okay. So ito, Chief medyo applicable sa organization nila but I'm sure some employees are experiencing this as well. Like yung po bang wage distortion also applies to those employees who are in 10 years na po or more doon sa company pero ang rate po nila is ka-level lang po ng 6 years and even shorter doon po sa years of service.
I do na yung discussion ko kasi nag-focus lang talaga kung merong wage order po.
Mhm.
So, it would really depend upon your company if you will adopt this correction of distortion sa mga ganitong cases po. So, the management and the employees should have to talk po talaga.
Okay. And not only just for the wage distortion, no, Chief, I think also I want to dovetail on the importance of having a benchmark because again, if you want
Yes,
some
correct.
pay structure there, and that's really the best time for you to understand na bakit meron pa pala kayong mga 10 years or more na ang sinasahod pa rin ay 6 years because as discussed during, our discussion, one of the things that you have to consider is the tenure and the longevity of the employee in the organization. So, to your disadvantage as an employer, that individual might end up really leaving the organization and how much you've invested to him or her, di ba? So 10 years is really a long time. It will be a forgone opportunity for you if that employee leaves unless of course the employee is someone who is terminable for just causes or authorized causes. So there.
Yeah, kaya
Mhm.
importante talaga yung logical basis of
Correct.
differentiation natin sa job
Mhm.
evaluation.
Okay. Thank you. Attorney Chief, so thank you for the informative discussion. If our monthly rate is already beyond the required minimum wage po, are we still obliged to increase if there is a wage order in the region where we have employees? Thanks.
Opo, hindi po kasi ang wage orders po talaga nag-a-apply lang sa minimum wage earners po, kung meron tayong minimum wage earners sa ating company po. Pero kung sa mga ganito, hindi naman po.
Okay. So, Chief, paano naman po kung yung pong allowances natin, yung excess in the minimum wage sorry. What if ginawang allowances yung excess in the minimum wage? Dapat pa rin po ba silang isama sa wage distortion?
Una po sa lahat, kung allowance siya, dapat hindi po siya part ng minimum wage, separate po siya. So you
Mm.
have to comply with the minimum wage plus the allowance kung ito po ay if it already ripened into a benefit na po, no? So,
Mm.
comply, hindi po puwedeng, siguro meron ding ano 'no, i-open ko lang din yung discussion on facility evaluation. Like for example, there are companies providing, aside from allowances, yung board and lodging, and it is deemed incorporated in the wages of the employees 'no. Possible po yun provided ito po ay ina-apply sa mga wage boards po natin. So, hindi puwedeng, kayo lang po, ang magdedesisyon for that kasi meron pong computation dun on how much should be deemed incorporated in the wage of the employees.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. So, paano naman po if our main office is located at NCR but we are remote working? So, meron po kaming empleyado located at different regions. What are we going to use as our minimum wage?
Opo, provided hindi po ito yung branches ha, basta main lang po ay NCR, the NCR po ito.
Okay. Sige po. Next question. If found na mayroon pong wage distortion, kailan po effectivity of the new wage? I think you've addressed this already, attorney, but do you want to answer again?
From the effectivity of the wage order din po.
Okay. I think this is a question for Rafi, no. So where to get accurate market data for the salary research for benchmark?
For this one, there are several sources for this one. The ones that are relevant to the Philippine market are few, or if they are there, they're not really as updated as it is. So what we would recommend is you go talk to our, there's a link that was posted about talking to us about the salary benchmarking services and compensation leveling service, so we can provide that information for you.
Okay, so our Sprout team, I think they typed already the link to our salary benchmarking services and CLS services. So, feel free to connect to that link. Okay. Can we ask for the link po of the salary benchmarking and CLS? Please, Sprout team, please provide Sir Rolando and the rest of the participants of the link. Thank you. Can we ask assistance on salary benchmarking as we are currently doing such an to upscale our compensation package? Yes. Again, the link will be sent there in our group chat, in the chat space rather. For Attorney Faye, how do we know kung meron pong formula na best for food manufacturing industry?
Wala po akong isasagot na best formula kasi we always encourage kasi dun sa ating steps, di ba, in correcting wage distortion. It would always depend upon the negotiations of the employers and the employees.
Okay. Sige po. This is for Rafi again. How can we avail of Sprout salary benchmarking data here in the Philippines? I think, again, the link will be sent to that chat group po. How much is the service regarding compensation benchmarking? That will be addressed by the team of Sprout. What if our employer don't want to have distortion salary computation? What do we do, attorney? Can we force the employer?
Parang nag-freeze ata.
Attorney is still there, yeah. Attorney, did you hear my question, Attorney Faye? Hello?
Yes po.
Ay, sorry.
Akin po.
Am I clear or am I getting cut po? Sorry. So the question came from Ma'am Ludivina. What if our employer don't want to have distortion salary computation? Paano naman yun, ma'am? Ayaw talaga ni employer. What do we do? Can we force?
Kailangan natin ma-prove yung steps muna kung na-comply natin, di ba? May step 1, step 2, and step 3. So, we can always seek assistance from the RTWPBs of your region po pag may mga ganyang problema.
Okay.
Sa website po namin, makikita nyo kung saan located.
Okay. Thank you, Ma'am Faye. And this is for Rafi. No? Rafi, for the salary benchmark, say this is a prospect, no, mold manufacturing companies. No? Question, like, is it important for them to have industry-specific benchmark? What's your take on that, Rafi?
Yes, it's very important that the benchmark that you're using is relevant to your specific situation. Because there are several instances wherein the same role is paid a lot more in a different industry because of certain requirements, certain roles that person is doing compared to other industries. So it's best that you have relevant information when you're doing benchmarks.
Okay. Ang question ko dyan, Rafi, actually, and maybe to Ma'am Faye, no? Like, how often do you think should a company update the salary benchmarking, no, to ensure competitiveness in the market? Just so because yung iba kasi ang ginagawa nga, katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, is they get to update the pay structure kapag meron na tayong mandated wage orders na nanggagaling sa NWPC or sa DOLE. So what's your take on that, Rafi?
For me, as I mentioned earlier, it's more of like, di ba, parang exercise siya. If you really want to build yung trust with your employees na you want to make sure na you always have them in mind whenever you're thinking about compensation, it needs to be regular talaga. Like, yung regularity, it can be yearly, especially if there are any minimum wage orders, increase orders, or it can be every two years. What's important is you have a regular schedule of doing it because it provides that transparency sort of to your employees. It reduces yung parang inisip nila, we're not going to be paid properly. Instead of thinking about that, employees will think na, when is our next salary assessment again? And then that's the time na parang, okay, I will be paid properly naman based on the market situation. I don't need to look for other opportunities to be paid properly.
Yeah. Ako rin, I think really my take on that is the frequency depends on various factors, no? If we're just going to talk about it legally, no, as mentioned by Chief Faye nga, sabi niya ang interval is like after mong ma-implement, dapat 1 year after that. Kapag naging effective na 1 year after that, then wala pang magbabago sa wage order natin. So if we are to consider that, we're talking of really 2 years, no, time frame na walang galawan ang sahod. But of course, there are various factors aside from the legal. What if the position is really critical and you know that you're losing people in that department? So say if it's engineering, dahil tech company ka, and then all of a sudden, or manufacturing, at lahat ng tao mo sa production line, you're losing to your competitor. So I would really see and make sure that I have the updated data for their salaries para ma-update ko rin at magawan ko ng solusyon. No? And also, benchmark is also a great tool for HR recruiters because sometimes when you get to recruit, individuals, they get to inflate, their value. Of course, to the advantage naman of applicants, it's really important that you know what's your worth. But to the disadvantage of the employer, exactly how much do we have to pay you? Kasi ikaw nga lang ang basihan natin. But if you have a salary benchmark, you can easily, that's immediately accessible to you. You'll be able to immediately have, a data-driven decision. Itong applicant na to is inflating, diba? Overvaluing kung ano yung worth niya. This is only how much I can offer based on the benchmark that we have. So those things, again, the short answer is the frequency is really dependent. So there. Okay. I'll go to the next question. Chief A, meron ba tayong salary matrix for mutual benefits association? Maybe for, different industries.
Wala po kaming gano'n na oo, we just follow the wage order po. Yun lang po talaga ang aming mandato. Pasensya na po.
Okay. But I think in the benchmark, since we have several industries that are within our system, perhaps we can provide you as part of the compensation leveling structure, a salary matrix that's applicable for your organization. That's exactly what the CLS people are for. We can provide you what we think are the competitive salary range and even benefits for your employees, across the industry that you are operating. So there. Okay, so we've answered also the wage distortion formula. Hello po, can you share us the latest salary compensation benchmarks for mining industry for our reference? Sure, we can do that, but you can reach to our team, the Sprout team. So, Chief A, legally, we do not have to address wage distortion, right?
Kailangan po. Kailangan i-address po natin. It's in Article 124 of the Labor Code po. I-address po natin as long as present po lahat ng elements ha. So, hindi pwedeng wala ang isa sa mga elements po. I think meron pang isang question about dun sa exponent. Sure. Yeah.
Sige lang. Please feel free to address.
Kung ano yung exponent daw, wala naman ako ma-recommend na exponent po, no? Kasi nga sabi ko nga suggested lahat. Pero ang usually po na ginagawa is yung exponent ay 2 because the higher the exponent, lumiliit yung wage distortion adjustment natin.
Ayun. Opo. Tanong po ni Ma'am Rowena Mandilag po.
Yes.
I'll mark that as answered already as slide. I think we can only accommodate 5 more questions.
May nagtanong din sir dun sa night shift differential, although hindi ko siya topic. Nagbigay lang ako ng reference.
Sure.
Saan you can download the BWC handbook or the Bureau of Working Conditions handbook. Nandun po lahat ng computations ng salaries natin. Overtime pay, night shift differential, nandun po.
Okay. Sige po. I think my next question is, how do you think, maybe this is for Rafi and for me, but even Chief A, please feel free to chime in. But how do you think technology and data analytics assist in managing wage problems such as distortion, inequalities, and optimizing compensation strategies?
Okay, go ahead. Ikaw muna, Attorney Ryan.
Okay, sige. Just to use our benchmark platform, really important that technology can provide you predictive analytics, It can potentially provide you an idea of where there could be a distortion in your pay structure, and it can also provide you a predictive analytics based on, kasi yun naman mga factor like such as inflation, etc. You can take the historical data of this, no, and then just parang i-plug mo lang siya doon sa formula mo. You'll be able to have a predictive analytics, no. And for me, what's really important also is the real-time reporting. Because again, kapag ngayon ka naghahanap ng empleyado or ngayon ka nawawala ng empleyado, I think you have to have the right data and the real-time access to compensation data para you can immediately decide or promptly address the problem, the pay structure problem in your organization. So I think these are the two areas where I would really, really leverage technology and data analytics.
Sige, for me, my take on technology related to salary benchmarking and compensation, if you think about it, HR professionals do something really well, which is really do their work in terms of related to HR. You don't
Correct.
really have a lot of time to do a lot of research to gather up-to-date information and to provide that structure within your organization. Kumbaga, it's not the most efficient use of your time. So it's best that you use technologies to augment what you're really capable of so that you become more of a star, di ba? Na parang you're someone that doesn't just do a work of one person, pero parang you're able to utilize all of these tools available to you to deliver your work. Yun, that's
Okay. Sige. I'll go to the next question. Sige. So, yun nga, palaging natatanong, paano kung meron po tayong budgetary constraints? So, how do we do wage distortion? How do we address competitive compensation? How do we? Dahil wala po tayong budget.
Actually, can I answer that?
Sure.
Actually po, may Supreme Court decision na na hindi dahilan na wala kayong budget para sabihin na hindi nyo kayang i-correct yung wage distortion po. So
Okay.
it's mandatory po. So what you can do siguro is to file for exemption if there are really grounds for exemption.
And where do they file, Chief? Sa NWPC po ba? Or
Sa RTWPB, sa wage boards.
sa wage board. And
Opo.
how liberal is the wage board in granting that? Of course, I'm not saying and not advocating that, employees should be given the exception right away, but we just want to understand how liberal.
Mabait naman po yung mga wage boards natin. No?
Okay.
Marami naman pong naa-approve. Pero marami rin na-disapprove kasi hindi pasok sa requirements.
Okay.
So, dapat pasok sa requirements. Makikita niyo po yan sa Omnibus Rules on Minimum Wage Determination. Siguro po we will also send that to you para mag-guide po tayo on the exemption requirements.
Okay po. Thank you, Chief A. Rafi, do you have a take on it?
Good.
Okay, sige. Ako naman siguro, some practical advice. Maybe you can do prioritization as I've mentioned during my presentation. No? Like really which roles are strategic to your organization. Kung meron na kayong pipeline at alam niyo na yung gagawin niyo because you're doing the annual business planning every year as Rafi, mentioned, then from there you can already prioritize kung sino ba talaga yung positions and department na sa tingin niyo would really benefit for a new pay structure, no. And kung talagang wala, we'll do it phase implementation. Like sabi nga ni Chief A, pwede kayo mag-apply ngayon ng exemption kung mag-grant kayo. Fortunately, kung nag-grant, edi okay. But kung hindi, hopefully you can do gradual adjustment on the salaries as your budget allows, no. But again, you have to address wage distortion if that is really present because there's a Supreme Court decision there. So sometimes if we don't have, the budget for that, we have to find ways just so because it's mandated by the law. So there. Okay. I think my last question na lang, Chief A, last. So sa tingin mo ba, Chief A, may aasahan pa tayong pagtaas ng sahod sa mga parating na panahon, maybe this year or in the next year? Sa Kamaynilaan or saan man?
So for this year po, hindi ko naman masasabing meron, pero you can check the Facebook pages of our RTWPBs and they are currently conducting public hearings and consultations. Importante po na umattend kayo sa public hearings and consultations para ma-air nyo din na hindi kaya or kaya ba, no? Also, for information din po, ang ating wage boards po, meron pong representatives yan from the management sector and from the employee sector. So, hindi lang basta-basta ito or hindi ito kathang isip ang pag-increase. Meron po kayong mga representatives sa board.
Okay, thank you, Chief Faye. So, thank you to our speakers, of course, Chief Faye, for your time, and to the NWPC team po, no, and also to Sir Rafi. We'll bring back Shay, please, our virtual host. There you go, Shay.
So thank you again, Attorney Ryan, Attorney Faye, and Rafi. We would like to request everyone who is interested to learn more about Sprout Benchmark to scan the QR code and book a demo with us. So let's just wait for there we go. So please scan the QR code if you would like to learn more about Sprout Benchmark, our benchmarking tool. All right, so I hope all of those who had questions regarding benchmarking, who wanted to ask support from Sprout regarding how to benchmark their salaries, their current salaries, to determine whether they're below industry standard, within, or even above. So I hope you're all scanning the QR code in order to book a demo with our team. Now, before we end, I would like to invite everyone to our upcoming HR Experts webinar on September 29. Scan the next QR code to register. And in addition, Sprout is currently working on a white paper on salary benchmarking best practices. So make sure to watch out for that. I hope you're all excited for our upcoming HR Experts webinar, as you can see on the screen. So I encourage everyone to join and be as engaging as you are today. We really appreciate all of the questions, all of the congratulations, and all of the comments each of you have made. It was truly a for safe, and see you again next time.